There is a type of success that Hollywood does not know how to categorize because it does not resemble the success Hollywood is selling. Not the mansion and the parties and the name in lights. Not the persona carefully managed and the image carefully protected. Not the desperate, hungry, forward-tilting ambition that the industry runs on and that it mistakes, consistently, for passion. Joel McCrea's success looked like cattle, like grassland stretching to the horizon, like a working ranch in the Ventura County hills, run by a man who happened also to be one of the most reliable and gifted actors of the studio era, and who would have been entirely content if the acting had never happened and the land had been enough from the start. Joel Albert McCrea was born on November 5, 1905, in South Pasadena, California, the son of a gas company executive and a woman descended from one of the original California settler families. He grew up in Los Angeles when Los Angeles was still becoming itself, when the hills above the city were still open country, and the movie industry was a new and slightly disreputable thing happening to the West. He was outdoors from the beginning, riding horses, working with animals, developing the specific physical ease of someone who has grown up with land and understood it as the fundamental reality against which everything else is measured. He drifted toward Hollywood in the late 1920s, not because he burned to perform, but because he was tall and handsome, and the industry was nearby, and the work paid. He was 6'2", broad-shouldered, with a face of such uncomplicated American handsomeness that the camera found it instantly usable. A face that communicated decency and capability without requiring the actor to do very much to establish either quality. He had a stillness that the screen translated as authority. He did not fidget. He did not over-explain. He arrived in a scene, and the scene became more real. He saved the money. From the first contract, from the early films, he saved with a purposefulness that his colleagues, most of whom spent their salaries, with the enthusiasm of people who expected the salaries to continue indefinitely, found either admirable or baffling, depending on their own relationship with financial reality. Joel McCrea knew what he was saving for. He was saving for land. California land, specifically, the rangelands and the grasslands, and the working agricultural land that the real estate market of the 1930s and 1940s was still making available to a man with patience and capital and the long view. He became, over the decades of his Hollywood career, one of the largest private landowners in California. Not as an investment in the financial sense, not as a portfolio of assets to be managed and liquidated at the optimal moment, but as a life. The ranch was not a hobby, and it was not a retreat. It was the central fact of his existence, around which everything else, including the acting, was organized as a supporting element. He worked the land. He raised cattle. He hired cowboys and worked alongside them and knew the difference between a man who understood cattle and a man who was pretending to, because he was one of the former and had spent enough time with the latter to tell them apart. Sullivan's Travels in 1941, directed by Preston Sturges, gave him the role that serious film students cite when they make the case for Joel McCrea as an actor of genuine depth. He played a Hollywood director who wants to make a film about human suffering and sets off incognito to experience poverty firsthand. The film is a comedy that becomes something more complicated, a meditation on what entertainment is for and what art owes to the people it claims to be about. McCrea played it with the understated precision of a man who understood the joke and the seriousness simultaneously, who could be funny without announcing it and moving without manufacturing the emotion. Sturges, who was not given to uncomplicated admiration, said McCrea was the ideal actor for his material because he was so utterly without pretension that the pretension of the characters around him became visible by contrast. Hitchcock used him in Foreign Correspondent in 1940, casting him as an American reporter in pre-war Europe who stumbles into a spy thriller, and the casting worked for the specific reason that Joel McCrea did not look or behave like a movie star. He looked like a man, an actual man, from an actual place, with actual opinions about things that had nothing to do with the camera, which is exactly what Hitchcock needed for a film whose drama depended on the audience's belief that the events were happening to a real person rather than a constructed one. He turned down roles. This, in an industry where the fear of being passed over was the dominant psychological weather, was so unusual as to be almost incomprehensible. He turned down the lead in Paramount's The More the Merrier because he thought Fred MacMurray could do it better, and he said so plainly to the studio. And the studio, too surprised to argue, cast MacMurray instead. The film was a hit. McCrea did not appear to feel he had lost anything. He shifted in the late 1940s and through the 1950s toward the Western. Not because his dramatic range was exhausted, but because the Western was where the horses were. He could make a Western and spend the working day on horseback in the California or Utah or Arizona landscape, doing work that connected him to the ranch and the land even when the camera was present. He was very good at Westerns. He brought to them the same quality he brought to everything: the absence of performance, the presence of reality, the sense of a man who understood the thing he was depicting because he lived a version of it when the cameras went home. Ride the High Country in 1962, directed by Sam Peckinpah, paired him with Randolph Scott in what became, unexpectedly, one of the most beautiful Westerns ever made. A film about two aging gunfighters at the end of an era, whose friendship and integrity are tested by the temptation of easy money, and whose final choice costs them everything and is made without hesitation. McCrea played it with the full weight of a man who had thought about integrity in practical terms for his entire life. The performance was not constructed, it was expressed. He retired from film in the late 1970s and returned to the ranch without drama or farewell. He did not attend many events. He did not give many interviews. He had never been comfortable with the performance of celebrity and saw no reason to begin practicing it at the age of 70. He had land. He had horses. He had Frances D., whom he had married in 1933 and who remained his wife until his death. 57 years. A marriage that the industry's divorce rate made almost statistically impossible, and that both of them treated as an ordinary fact of life, rather than an achievement requiring comment. He died on October 20th, 1990, in Woodland Hills, California, at the age of 84. The ranch continued. The land continued. His son Jody continued the cattle operation on property that Joel McCrea had begun assembling in the 1930s, from the money he had saved, while his colleagues were spending theirs on parties and houses they could not afford, and the performance of a wealth they had not yet secured. He was one of the finest actors of the golden age of Hollywood, who never wanted to be a movie star. He wanted the land. He got the land. He did the acting alongside it, with the quiet competence of a man who understood that work is work, and that the work is dignified when you bring your full attention to it, regardless of whether the attention is being pointed at a camera or a fence that needs mending. The difference between Joel McCrea and most of his contemporaries is not talent. The talent was real and significant. The difference is what the talent served. For most of them, the talent served the career, and the career served the fame, and the fame served the self. For Joel McCrea, the talent served the work, and the work served the life, and the life was a ranch in the California hills where a man who happened to be a movie star could get up in the morning and do something real. He preferred the ranch, and the ranch, it turned out, preferred him.